Alrighty, welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. I'm an attorney and legal coach based here in Seattle, Washington, serving entrepreneurs throughout the US and around the world. Welcome today to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. I am so excited. Wendy, we're like years overdue for this. I was looking and I think I tried to book you 2 years ago and somehow it got bumped or somebody had to reschedule. So I'm so glad that we are finally connecting,
Yay.
especially on the podcast. And yeah, for those of you that don't know Wendy, this is going to be a fabulous conversation. So Wendy and I actually first met, we were just talking about this the year before the pandemic hit at a mastermind in San Francisco. And she was one of my immediate favorites, and I was in love from day one. So that's my side of the story. For those of you that don't know Wendy, Wendy Petties, the Date Your Money coach, knows that the key to having everything you desire is to create a healthy and intimate relationship with your money, one where you feel clear, confident, and competent. She believes that the more you tune into pleasure, the easier it is to increase your money. After filing bankruptcy, she used her signature method, the sexy money lifestyle, which highlights her skills as an MBA, psychologist, and a sex educator to grow her net worth to well over $1.3 million. She now gets to empower women entrepreneurs to totally transform how they think and feel about money so they can truly afford whatever they desire. The first step in this process is the Date Your Money workshop experience. Wendy is determined to increase the number of female entrepreneurs with a personal net worth of over $1 million. She has been featured in Essence Magazine, Fast Company, Sisters from AARP, NBC LX, and O School. Once a month, and O School. Sorry, I had my notes that followed. We'll have my editor just edit out that little blip. So welcome, Wendy. I am so excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. And it is a mutual love fest. Like we just met. I think we had been in some groups before, but we met in person that time and it was just sheer love. And so I am grateful to be here with you today. And lots has happened since we've seen each other.
Lots has happened. Before we went live, I was just telling Wendy that I was sitting here daydreaming about that San Francisco trip, right?
Yeah,
Life
yeah.
was so good. It was like a beautiful weekend, sunny weekend in San Francisco.
Yep.
Met a really fabulous, intimate group of people that we got to spend all weekend with. I got out to see the city. I
had a massage.
Right? Wendy was bragging about her massage. I walked 10 miles and then I needed a massage, but it was awesome. It was so fun. And then, of course, the whirlwind pandemic and life. And Wendy, I know you've been through a lot in the meantime. And oh, welcome, doggy.
That's Jasper. He said hello to everybody too.
What kind of dog is he?
He's a Havanese, so he's Cuban. He's got a little sass and fiery in him too.
I love it. I love it. Well, Wendy, I would love for you to share a little bit about your origin story. I know, I mean, you've got an impressive resume and your background, you've got a lot going on in your background. I love that you are an MBA, psychologist, and sex educator of all things. Like, what a fabulous combo. Tell us how you got started in those areas.
Well, it goes back to the early 80s. I think I would kind of think about that. You know, I'm 53 years old now. I'm a native New Yorker, and I always knew I wanted to work on Wall Street. At least I think I did. You know, like I thought at the time that I wanted to. But I was working before I went to go get my master's, and I got assigned to a project that I now dub myself as the condom negotiator because I was, yes, the condom negotiator. I was helping women to navigate difficult conversations about condom usage during the height of the HIV and AIDS. And so that's where I got a little comfortable talking about things that other people don't talk about. And I also was trained in this way to put pleasure first. Now, when I went out to talk to people about this, they were not interested in the pleasure side of sex. And it really floored me. And that led me to my psychology degree because I was like, I want to understand why people do things and how they interact if they're not happy. And so that's how I wound up getting the psychology degree. And I got an MBA. I worked on Wall Street and hated it, but made a whole bunch of money. I
Ah,
made a whole bunch of money that I'm grateful for. I was able to buy my house. I was able to do all kinds of things, but my body wasn't happy and I
mm,
became really, really sick. And so I left Wall Street and thought, let me do something else because that'll cure this in me. I went and worked for an airline. It was amazing, my dream job, but I wasn't making any money
yeah.
and I still was sick.
Mm,
And I wound up being harassed at that job and I left and I was broken, and needed to fill myself back up. And it was difficult. I had amassed $310,000 worth of debt, medical debt,
oh, wow.
because I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't paying attention to myself. I wasn't paying attention to things that didn't feel right. And when I left my dream job, I was forced out. So that was another turning point. I decided, one, I'm never going to work for anyone else again. And two, I got to find a way to fill myself back up. And so I went back to the basics. I went back to my sex education training about pleasure and about how to really navigate and check in with myself about what I want and what I don't want. And that's kind of how they all came together. And it's all me, and that all of those pieces are important. All of the highs and the lows brought me to this moment right here. And so that's kind of how it all came about.
Wow. I'm curious, the part of you that is comfortable having the difficult conversations,
Yeah.
where does that come from? Is that just part of who Wendy is and always has been? And was it something that you cultivated? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it's both. My mom tells stories that I was really, really independent and really frank, even at about 3 years old. She tells a story that, my mom was an educator, is an educator, and she had my sister and I in the bathtub, and she was telling us that this is your collarbone or your clavicle, and this is your nose, and these are your nostrils. Like, it was really important for her to teach us the names of
Mm,
our body parts. And so she said, and we're going to wash your vagina now. And so she washed our vaginas and she told us this, it's special because only girls have them. And the next morning I went to breakfast and, my father was there and I said, Papa, I don't want you to be sad. And he said, why would I be sad, baby girl? And I said, because you don't have a vagina. So he was like, I don't even know how to handle that. And so I've been just, they allowed me to nurture that part of myself where I would just say things and not for shock value, just because I was curious. And I think that I have nurtured that part of me where people feel really safe and comfortable. I also think that I've had to I've had to do it also because of some of the hard things that have happened because I didn't want to be shamed by it. And so I took the opposite. Like, I'm going to tell you about it and tell the truth about it so that, if you wanted to out me or you wanted to blame me or blast it someplace, I would have some control over it. And so I do that for myself. Like, I've had gastric bypass surgery. I filed bankruptcy. You know what I mean? I've had an abortion. Whatever you think about the things, that's your thing, but I'm not going to be shamed about it. And so I do that for myself, but also to set a space for other people so that they can be true. Because I do believe where we are right now is a culmination of all the amazing things and all the things that we wish we had made other choices about. So
right.
I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, even from a young age, you had a natural openness about you and a willingness to, to ask questions. It sounds like you were also well supported by your parents in having those
Sometimes it got on
conversations.
their nerves.
Yeah.
I will just tell you, sometimes they were horrified, but they never squashed it. you know?
Mhm.
So I'm grateful for that. I know that a
Mhm.
lot of children get the, we want you to be seen and not heard, or that's not appropriate to say or asked or whatever. And I
Mhm.
don't remember feeling that growing up,
Yeah.
even when they were like, oh my goodness, Wendy, here's why you shouldn't say that loud, or here's
Mhm.
why you can ask, but maybe someone doesn't want to answer. Like they would explain those things to me, and I would take it in, and act appropriately.
Mhm.
But act accordingly, not even appropriately, but act accordingly, because it wouldn't squash me.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, it is, it is interesting to look at the circumstances that help to create those who, let's just say, go against some of the norms, go
Hmm.
against some of the trends,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think you and I are not too far apart in age where growing up, girls, the culture is that girls shouldn't be as forceful. At least it certainly was, when
Yeah,
I was younger. I
yeah.
remember this older boy liking me, and I did not like him at all.
Hmm.
And I remember my mom, who was friends with his parents. The advice to me was like, Heather, be nice.
Yeah,
Like, don't hurt feelings,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yes. Oh,
It,
yes.
and I look back at that, and my mom intended well, but
Yeah,
I feel like, and I remember feeling like at the time that was entirely the wrong advice to give,
yeah, yeah.
right?
It's so interesting that you said that, because I didn't have perfect parents that knew how to
Mhm.
do everything. There were some messages that I was like, I mean, and like I said, they were embarrassed by me sometimes, and they would cringe like, oh, and they would apologize for me, whatever, but they did their best to not squash me and to not
Mhm.
make me feel shamed, while telling
Mhm.
me the lesson in the ways that they could. But society has created this whole rule book for how
Mhm.
women should behave. And my first company was called Good Girls Do,
I love that.
and it was about sex and relationships. I was
Yeah.
focused mainly on sex and relationships, and it was like like an affront, like good
Yeah.
girls do whatever the hell they want to do, and so, and it came from that kind of, well, I don't know if you should say it like that, or you should wear that, or
Yes.
you should feel lucky, that someone wants to date you or whatever. Not checking in with yourself, squashing your intuition, and
Mm.
making nice and all of those things. And so I
Yes.
just I don't agree with that. I think we can use those strengths overdone also, and we can be
Mhm.
really, really masculine, and like, I don't need anybody, and I'm not subscribing to that either. But I think finding your space in the middle is really, really important. As a
Yeah.
woman,
Oh,
we have to be able to do that.
absolutely. And I've watched the journeys, obviously, of women that I love, of my
Mhm.
sisters, of myself. It happens at different stages in life. And I
Yeah.
think, like,
And for
some,
different reasons.
and for different reasons, out of
Mhm.
different life experiences. But I am always curious, for those who bucked the trend and did it early, what
Mhm.
helped cultivate that? Because I think it's a really, really important lesson, especially for women. You know, Society generally, and this carries over into business, how we
Yeah.
show up in our careers,
Yes.
right? Not to be the squeaky mouse, not to speak up, don't
Yep.
be too bitchy,
Be grateful.
be grateful, all of these things about, really just going with the flow in
Yes.
order to fit in
Mhm.
and not, not rock the boat too much. The other question that came to mind when you were describing your background is this idea of leaning into pleasure, and you learning or sorting out that people did not want, and I can't remember how you worded it, whether it was that they did not want to have the conversation, or was, because my question is, were they really avoiding pleasure or avoiding talking about it?
Well, I think for these people, it was both.
Both.
It was
Yeah.
both. They did not want to, like, I remember vividly, like, going in with my flip chart, and I was ready. I was in what I call my stupid 20s, and you listeners who are in your 20s may not think or no, but you're probably in your stupid 20s too, because we learned so much more later. But I was in my stupid 20s and I went with, I'm going to help these people and I'm going to teach them and whatever. And they were like, look, honey, we're not having sex with them because it's about, like being passionately kissed and all this, like, no, we sleep with him because he does X, Y, and Z, or he provides security, or, or he's not that bad. Like, it wasn't about pleasure.
It was like functional.
Yes,
Yes.
transactional, functional.
Yes.
And it blew my mind because I thought I knew everything. And I thought, what are you talking about? And so so it was that they were like, you're wrong. And so let's not even talk about that. But then they also didn't want to even consider that could be an option. Like, they didn't have the tools to consider that was an option. So that started me on this quest about, like, asking everybody. I was like, are you having sex with someone that you don't want to have sex with? Are you not having pleasure? Like, like, I remember vividly these conversations where people were like, what? If I would ask, and there was more than one person there, like if I would ask my friends, they would act so horrified. And then they'd come in the bathroom and they'd be like, no, actually, or sometimes, but I really hate when this happens, or I don't like this, or whatever. And I was like, okay, here's what you do. You know what I mean? And so that really started the conversations. And I have found that I just wrote an article for a magazine about the connection between pleasure and money. How when we are in our confident, full up selves, we can negotiate all kinds of things. We can ask for what we want. We can raise our prices. We can decide. Decide we're going to do something different. Decide we're not going to do something different. But it stems from confidence, and confidence to me is feeling juicy and yummy, and that's what I'm talking about. It's not sexual pleasure, although orgasms are wonderful, and there's a whole scientific reason why women should be in tune to their orgasms. It's more creativity, more productivity, more focus, more confidence, all of those things. But most women are not having orgasms regularly, so we have to broaden this thought about pleasure. We have to think about, do I like the pen that I'm using? Like, how does it feel in my hand? Do I want to have an apple?
Do I like the clothes that I'm wearing? How do they feel?
Yes.
Right.
Or do I put on that bra again where my boobs slip through the bottom, or I'm tugging on the side, or I am uncomfortable because I don't have enough time or energy, or or it's not that bad. Like, do we do that, or do we throw it out and say, you know what, I'm going to order a new bra, or I'm going to make an experience of bra shopping? How many people have gone to a beautiful place to buy a bra? The first time I did it, I was like, I can have champagne and chocolates while I'm trying on fancy underwear,
Right.
and get fitted by someone, have someone take care of me. It is a beautiful experience. And even if you don't, because some people will be horrified, well, oh my God, well, those places, the bras cost $100 or whatever. Just do the experience and find out what that bra is that fits you perfectly, and find someplace else to buy it if you don't have the money right now.
Right. Or just buy it.
Yes.
And ask yourself, how do you replicate that experience in your life, in your business, for others, right? So what I hear you saying is that sex is one way that we get to embody this, sense of joy or pleasure or self-attunement. And it's just one of the ways,
just one way.
just one of the ways that it shows up for us. But when we're in, and my goodness, I think anybody who's been in any relationship that's not the right fit, or has things out of balance, or where people are not really attuned to themselves in the relationship, they can relate so much to what you described about the functional like the ways that we can slip into autopilot. I'll just call it
Absolutely.
autopilot, right?
Autopilot. That's a beautiful way of thinking about it because it takes away the judgment also,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and I think also there's a sense for a lot of us humans to avoid things that are painful to look at because we think if we look too hard at that thing, we're going to have to change it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's
Yeah.
scary.
It
That's
is.
rocking the boat. That's
It
scary.
is. It is. And I agree with that. And that's part of the work that I do
Mm,
is make it not so scary. I
mhm.
make it fun and I make it in a safe space. We
Yes.
have a party, we talk about it, we align how we feel about our relationship with money with how we're acting and behaving and showing up in our relationship with people. And so, like we prepare for our date, the date your money thing. We prepare for it and, and people are like, I put on lipstick, and I mean, we've been in a pandemic, so, like when's the last time that you bothered, putting on lipstick or that you bought, we've had masks on, but this is about for you, not about for
Mhm.
anybody else to see. And if you don't want to put it on, that's a choice too.
Mhm.
Now I don't have to put on lipstick. Now I don't have to put on heels. I don't have to ever do that again if I don't want to, but it takes us looking at it and really assessing it. And once we can do those kind of things, we can move to the things that are a little more difficult, like I'm going to open this bill.
Yeah.
I'm going to look in my account. I'm going to tally up how much money I owe, or
Mhm.
how much money I made, or how much money I make, you know? And so that's what I'm talking about. Like we got to fill ourselves up with little things
Yeah.
so that it becomes second nature.
Yeah. Talk to me about when in your life you made the connection between like how we relate to pleasure, sex, joy, whatever terminology people want to use, right?
Mhm.
And our relationship with money.
Ah, yeah. So I started out as a sex and relationship coach, and it was really fulfilling. Like I was helping people have pleasurable experiences. And so whether it was, getting out of a toxic relationship or improving a relationship that was just so, or nurturing a great relationship, but it became pretty transactional for me too. Because I was
Mhm.
frustrated because people were titillated by the juicy stuff. They wanted to know, how do I give a good blowjob? And I was like, well, let's step back a second.
Yeah. Let's not start there.
Let's not start there. Just so you know. Um, and no shame about you wanting to learn and you wanting to do that. But for me, it's about, do you really want to give a blowjob? And is the
Yeah.
person on the receiving end worthy of this gift?
Yeah.
We have to look at that. And I got over and over again, oh, come on, just teach me. Oh, come on. And so it was surface. And I was like, I'm
Yes.
not doing that anymore. I'm not. And
Mm.
so that was part of when I started shifting away from just doing that. But the real catalyst for pulling these two things together was my own story and my own journey. When I filed bankruptcy after being harassed at work, it was my lowest point. I was on antidepressants. I
Mm.
felt like my identity of my job had been taken away from me. And who was I? I felt like I'm smart and I've made a whole bunch of money and now I don't have money and I don't
Mhm.
know how to handle money. And so I started all of these things kind of being, labeling myself with this. And so when I went back to the basics of, let's work on pleasure here, let's work on joy, let's work on this. I really had to pull myself out of depression and pull
Mm.
myself out of that. And I just started with little baby steps. And what I mean by baby steps is not little teeny incremental steps. I mean, have you ever seen a baby try to get at a toy? They use anything they have. Okay. They're going to crawl. They're going to pull. They're going to whine. They're going to use you as a ladder. They're going to, I mean, everything. And so that was the energy. It was baby steps like that. Like, I
Mm.
have to get out of this.
Yeah.
And so I just began doing practices, doing little habits like, okay, if I'm going to eat, what's a better choice than I would have made if I was on autopilot?
Yeah.
You know, do I like this plate? Do I like this shirt? I started kind of building that kind of stuff. And then I was able to make other choices about my money and make other choices about whether I wanted to buy that, whether I was buying it to fill something up in myself,
Mhm.
or whether I was buying it for someone else to get attention or to get what I was craving. Like I started really listening to myself and tuning into it and seeing, oh, that doesn't feel good. Oh, that feels good. Let me do more of that. And so that's how the connection came about. And
Mhm.
so I shifted my business. I knew how to do the money stuff. I knew how to do the entrepreneurial stuff. And I almost went all the way to the other side, like, hey, let me teach you how to build a business. And that didn't feel right either. And so I'm fun and I'm playful and I'm joyous. And so I started talking about like how you handle your money could
Mhm.
be, because I'm a psychologist also, could be kind of how you may interact in some of your relationships. I started
Mhm.
talking about that. And so that's how it really rose to the surface.
Mm. Well, I suspected before I asked the question that it had to do with, your personal story.
Yeah.
And the thing that, comes up time and again are these hard turning points in our lives that really shape our next decisions of what we're going to do and how we find joy in our work. And
Yeah.
sounds like you went through a really tumultuous time with
Mhm.
that period of harassment
Yeah.
and, having to make a career change.
Yeah.
How did you get through that?
Uh, so when you were just saying that, what I was thinking is that it doesn't stop. There's going to be something else. There's going to be another tragedy. There's going to be another disappointment. There's going to be another amazing thing. All of these things are
Mhm.
catalysts for changing, and we get the opportunity to check back in. And I think, like, as I look back at all of the things, I do this exercise called a life chart, a life map. And
Mhm.
it's really like you take a piece of paper and you put an X on one side and an X on the other, and then you draw a line, a curved line, to connect them. And then you just start putting down, and then that happened, and then that happened, and then that happened, and then that happened. And it's amazing how these things that have happened in our lives, either to us or for us, have changed the path and the trajectory. Now we can sit in, I was very sick. I had 11 surgeries in 11 years, and
Mm.
then I had spinal surgery, and then we can sit in all that heavy stuff, and we can also say, and I have written a book, and I have bought my house, and I have no debt, and and I've been loved really well, and I've traveled all over the world, so we can get, kind of this side or this side, one or the other. But I think that what helps me is, it's kind of funny, but I keep thinking of the Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Some people may not be old enough to remember this, but it was a toy that, would stand on the floor, and it was weighted on the bottom, and you would just kind of bat it back and forth, and it would never fall down. And so when
Mhm.
I'm feeling out of alignment, I remember that toy, that I got to get back to center. And I have tools, I have things that I can do, and I have practices that I have incorporated into my life. And I want to tell you a big secret and a big confession: it doesn't always work.
Yeah. Yeah.
My father died. He died suddenly,
Mm.
and I was floored, and I still am. And so, yes, I have lots of tools, but some days I am angry, and I am broken, and I am confused, and I'm stunned. And yet I believe that there is a way through, but it's not always pretty. And so I do my best. That's all I can do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, that, the Weeble Wobble, I remember those. And growing
Yeah.
up in a family of 6 kids, right? We had a variety of toys.
Yes.
That is a good reflection on life generally. It's like you sharing that life mapping exercise.
Mhm.
My husband and I were in therapy a few years back, and I laughed because it ended up being a terrible kind of therapy for us. It was like, PTSD and all sorts of things coming out of that therapy. But two good things happened. One, we learned our attachment styles as children, which
Mhm.
really heavily influenced some of the early dynamics in our relationship. So we've
Yeah.
been together for 11 years now, and we've learned so much. And I'm
Mhm.
happy to say we're in a much better place than we had been for quite some time. And the other thing we had to do as part of that therapy is create like the equivalent of what you just described, that life map, like
Yeah.
our overlapping life maps, and
Yeah.
like documenting really all of the big moments. And it was just like that Weeble Wobble, like
Yeah.
some really amazingly great ones and some tremendously hard, sour, heartbreaking, like all the entire variety, right? The whole
Yeah.
rainbow.
Yeah.
And yet it also was really like looking at that in kind of this visual way
Mhm.
was like this very strangely reassuring
Yeah.
exercise of like, look what we've made it through,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
think as humans, that's all we can do. Like,
Mhm.
look what we've made it through, look what we've gone through, look how we've evolved and
Yes.
shaped ourselves and
And
remolded
look what
ourselves.
we've done too.
Yes.
I mean, I always tell the story, I went to college over 30 years ago. And when I go back to homecoming, I'm so excited to see those people. And I also am devastated each and every time
Mm.
because inevitably someone will say, "Oh my God, I see you online. I see you doing big things. Oh my God." And then they'll say, "So are you married? Do you have kids?" As though that is,
Like the point of arrival.
yes.
Yeah.
And they negate everything that I've done. They kind of say it, like, "Oh, that's wonderful, but," you know, and I just am so saddened by that because, and then, like with my father dying, then they add, "And I'm so sorry about your dad." You know what I mean? So it's these like, yeah, 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 but you did these wonderful things. Oh my God, this is
Mm.
horrible. But what you really should do, Wendy, is get married and have a baby. And I'm like, I'm 53, I'm not having a baby, first of all. And don't you want to know how much I've been loved?
Yeah.
And so I think we do that to ourselves also. It's just like with money.
Mm.
People either focus on, I make all of this money. Oh my God, look how much I make. And they're not talking about how much they owe. Or they are devastated by, I am drowning in debt. I can't even take this. I can't deal with this. I can't, and they don't even think about the blessings that come from debt,
Mm.
and that they do own things, and they do have things that are of value, and they are capable of earning money, and they do earn money. So I'm here to help us in every aspect of our lives, like marry the two. We have to,
Yeah.
because that culmination is who we really are, and helps us to get to the next, wherever we want to go.
Yeah. Well, and this idea that both the good and the bad help us get to where we're headed next and just become part of the experience. I mean, what you're speaking about in your even recent experience since you and I met, right? I
Yeah.
know you've been through so
Yes.
much, and I'm so sorry for the loss of your
Thank
dad.
you.
And
Thank
what a traumatic time for
you.
you. And I know many others who are
Of
listening and have
course.
had sudden losses. And,
Yes.
it's just a very challenging reminder that there's never a point in life where we arrive and we're safe and we're protected in a bubble. You know what I mean? And I think that people strive to get to this level of like security or safety or happiness,
Yes.
or like, Wendy, you've met standards in society that, like
Mhm.
putting assumptions on ourselves and on other people about what arriving looks like,
Yeah.
right? It's just such a powerful reminder to step back and take those expectations back, take those
Yeah.
assumptions back.
And to check in with yourself about how you feel about those things.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I had a discussion a couple days ago about six figures, and people don't realize that six figures covers from $100,000 up until bumping a million. So what does that really mean? What does that really mean for you?
Right. Right. And I read a statistic. I don't know why he popped up in my feed, Dave Ramsey, saying a whole ton of millionaires out there never have a six-figure year.
Yeah.
Right? Like the things that
Yes.
we can do, even when we are not holding ourselves to somebody else's standard.
Yes. Yes. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I like to make the distinction, first of all, that this is what a millionaire looks like. This is what a millionaire sounds like. I have a net worth of over $1 million, which is what makes me a millionaire.
Right.
My business has never crossed the million threshold. I don't know. And I'm going to look to see if throughout all the years I've been in business, if I've earned $1 million in my business.
Mhm.
You know, like that's something that I just thought of now. Like I'm going to look at it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I get to choose what I want to do, because anything that I want to have means that I got to do something different or behave in a way to get that.
Mhm.
And I may opt to be like, no, I'm good right here, because I don't want to give up this or change this or do this. And it is a choice, but we get to make that choice. We
Yeah,
get to do that. And we are not our businesses, and we are our businesses as well,
that's right.
you know?
Well, and this, bringing a level of reflection and intentionality. I mean, I think obviously to our personal lives, but also to our work is so important, because this race that people are in to reach that next level, hit that next income bracket, like whatever it is. I've talked to so many people who've done that,
Mhm.
reached a new level of achievement in business and decided, you know what? I had it so much better back there a few steps,
Mhm.
right? And then intentionally redesigned their business to recreate actually an area of business that they achieved on their way up,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and so I think that people can literally kill themselves trying
Yes.
to get to those next levels, when the point that you made about like folks that, talk about whatever revenues they're making in their business, right?
Mhm.
You could have $1 million a year business and barely be taking home, I mean, whatever number, 50,
Yes.
100K, and
Absolutely.
somebody else could have a 350K a year business, a couple of team members, and still be taking home 150K a year.
Yes.
That's a better business.
That's a
If you're
better business.
talking,
And
yeah,
that's a better business model, but it might not serve you as the business owner. You know, like, what do you want to do? And you mentioned Dave Ramsey, and I am not really a fan of
I
his.
no, and I'm to be clear, that's why I said I don't know
Yes.
why he showed up in my feed, but I
Yeah.
saw that quote and I thought,
Yeah.
that is an interesting statistic.
Absolutely. And I, like I just believe that if we we get to check in with ourselves, we get to say, this is what I want to do and this is not what I want to do. And so, in mentioning Dave Ramsey, he has very specific, steps, and you should do this and whatever. And
Oh,
you'll
right.
never hear that about me,
The
like,
snowball method or
yes,
whatever. Like
yes.
everybody's like, oh yeah, Dave Ramsey, right?
Yeah, like I do believe in those ways to eliminate or lessen debt. Like there
Mm,
are some ways and some tools and pathways, but how we feel about the debt is important. I
yes.
also think that all debt is not bad. Like, so I don't agree with those things. And so you'll never hear me say like, oh my God, your house debt is better than your credit card debt, because what happened with that credit card debt? What is the blessing there? What did
That's
you
right.
get to do with that? The fact that
Mm,
you could have that debt in the first place is a blessing in and of itself. And so let's not, make your level of debt somehow be a reflection on your worthiness as a person. You know what I mean? And I
yeah.
don't, so I don't, somebody said, this is not, I'm not your average financial planner, you know what I mean? And I'm not a financial planner. I'm a money and dating coach, but you know what I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I love your reframe around that of looking at what society might say, oh, that's a negative, or you shouldn't have that much debt, or whatever, all the
Yeah.
number of rules that we hear about money,
Yeah.
about other things, and looking at it from the perspective of what has that done for me,
Yeah.
right? How has this served me? So I know some people who are like amazing gift givers. My mother-in-law loved spoiling people. Like when she was here on this planet, you would never see a Christmas without her overdoing it, like big
Yeah.
time. That was her love language. I'm sure she took on debt at times to do
Yes.
that. And it made her feel so happy. Now, is that everybody's path? No. But
No.
like my sister and I've had these conversations. People also don't need to behave the same with money, because some people are just simply manifestors. Like they are going to do better having somebody else help them manage their money, because they
Yep.
can go out and create it
Yes.
and make it and
Yes.
attract it and create
Yes.
all sorts of value. That's a
Mhm.
different person
Yep.
than somebody who has the personality where they need to be really fastidious around their money.
Yes, but we need to look at that and decide what we want and
Yes.
why and how we're going to get it and what feels good. And, I mean, I had a client this morning who was saying, like, I sell these, she sells nails, like the
Mhm.
those nail
Like the
tips.
acrylics or
Right.
whatever.
And she's a doctor. And so she's been trying to build her business around her practice. And she's like, I wish it could be like when I'm selling the nails. And I was like, why couldn't it be? And she was
Yeah.
like, well, what do you mean? She was like, I go on and we play and we have games and we have this. And I was like, well, why can't your workshops be like that? And she was like, oh. And so I told her about how I do it, and it's fun, and there's games and there's prizes and all this stuff. And we're still learning and we're still doing and we're still diving deep, and we get to some deep stuff, but it doesn't have to be. And that's it doesn't even have to be fun. That's how I do it. Somebody else may be like, I don't want to do that. I think it's okay to have people be like, yeah, Wendy, you're too much for me. Okay, no problem. You know what I mean? I think that we get to do what we want to do. And all too often we forget that. We forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We go back to autopilot, or we
Yeah.
follow somebody else's rules because we go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I haven't really created my own rules around that.
Yeah.
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 So share with us, because I know your work has evolved even in the time that I have met you and
Mhm.
known you.
Yeah.
You're doing something now called the Date Your Money workshop, right? Do you want to
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what that work looks like currently and
Yes.
who your clients are?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I am so in love with it. It's really an experience. So it is, the main highlight is a full day where we go from, are you even ready to have a relationship with your money, to a full state of bliss? Like, what would it look like to have that relationship of your dreams with your money? And the day before, we have happy hour because, before you go on a date, you want to talk about it, you want to plan, and you want to think about how it's going to be and all of that. So that is like a Friday night. And then Saturday night, we have the full day where we're doing this date. And then we have an after party. And the after party consists of coaching and Q&A. And then we have a dish your date session, because what you will learn in that day is how to really set yourself up for success with, and not just success, but joy in how you interact with your money. And so you have a week to do it, and then you come back and you dish your date. And so that's really the experience. And I make it interactive and I make it experiential, because it can be such a heavy thing and people are afraid and anxious. And so that's what I do. And that's the first part. A lot of people say my work is deep and doable. Let's get through the deep part first.
Yeah.
We'll worry about the doable part after, which I'll introduce you to during the date. At the end of the date, I'll tell you what the next steps are. But this is a contained experience. And so if you never decided to go further, it is forever changing, life changing. You will transform how you think and feel about money. It is for women, and particular women entrepreneurs.
I love that.
Because women have different needs and different stories and different challenges. Okay. And the reason I tie it to dating and relationships is because you'll learn things about your relationship styles and your dating styles that you never thought about, and in relation to the money. And so it is a tool for all of that, and it is a really very, very fun experience.
Well, I love the idea of fun and money, especially education around money, about how it can be different, about how to relate to your money. And for people, I'm sure there are some that are like, wait, a relationship with your money. But if you think about it, oh, kitty cat. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she is dating somebody who's fabulous with money. Like, he's always just had a head for managing it well. He's very structured. He's a good decision maker around money. My sister is like, well, in a lot of ways, like you, fun, brilliant, very magnetic. She wants to just be out making the money and not really worrying too much about the rest.
Yeah.
But she realizes, like, she has an opportunity to up level her own skills around money management.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, and she's like, for so long, because of the way we were raised, because of I'll call them money lectures we got as kids, like, money just never felt fun to her.
Yeah.
It felt stressful. It felt like she wasn't good at it as a kid. She's now really evolved, really into herself in a way. I mean, she's fabulous. She's in sales and she's phenomenal. But I think there are a lot of people there where they've made leaps in certain areas of their life, and they're really ready for that money story, that money relationship, to catch up to the level of success they feel in other places.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
I assume those are your people.
Those are my people. Absolutely.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, oh, I want to meet your sister because I could just give her some tips and she would have a wonderful time, wonderful experience doing this, because it doesn't, she could be making $300,000 and still have these things that tell her that earning money has to be hard and we got to hustle, or money doesn't grow on trees, or every time I have it, it slips through my fingers, or I don't
spend it.
I spend it, or, all these things. And we got to break those habits. It's the same way that we think about our relationships, like, a wife is supposed to do this. I should be able to cook. I should be able to do this. A mother doesn't do this. I'm the baby, so I should do this or shouldn't do this. Like, all these roles and all these things, like, I'm not saying they're not true. I'm just saying they may not be true for you. And
they don't have to be.
They don't
true.
have to be.
Yes.
And so, that's what we're talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So it's a fun time, and it's really transformational. So I just did the last one. I do the monthly. I just did the last one, and one person like tripled her rates. She was like, I deserve this. And so she posted on Instagram. She's like, my workshop that was $197 is now $597 for the two of them. And I was like, yay. And someone else did their first reel. She does face reading. And I was like, oh my God, how exciting is that? And she did her first reel, and she works with people who date. She uses face reading to help people to navigate the dating scene. And I was like, how fascinating. She was like, but people don't understand this and don't want to know about this. And I'm like, but you love it. You love it.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. Like, get clear about where you really are, get confident and feeling good so you can do what you want to do. And then we'll worry about the competence, like what you actually need to do and need to learn and all those things as an individual and as a business owner. We'll get there, but we got to clear out this stuff. We got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I know we're going to share links to that, the dateyourmoney.club, and some of the other things that you want to share. For folks that are listening, where do you like for them to connect with you? Are you online? Do you want them to go to your website? Share with us where you are.
So I am known as the Date Your Money Coach, and that's how you find me on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm Wendy Petties. I'm open to people sending me messages on my personal profile in Facebook. I have a free group called the Date Your Money, the free community. But most often people reach out and go to the website, which is dateyourmoney.club. That's how you find out about the Date Your
Perfect.
Money workshop experience. And so any of those places, people can find me. I am always open to having conversations because this is my mission. I want women to feel empowered and feel juicy and yummy and, kind of flirt a little with their money so that they can get the things that they want and they need. So
Oh,
that's my true hope, true wish.
oh, I love it. Well, in my opinion, there's nobody more perfect than you to deliver that message and that
Thank
support for
you.
people. If
Yeah.
you're listening, hop over, check out Wendy's links. I'm going to share them all on her podcast notes page, which you can find at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Wendy, what final either tip or takeaway would you like to leave people with today?
So my final tip is really just check in with your body. Remember, your body knows, and not in a, like a weird kind of way, like I'm not really woo woo. I'm kind of woo, like I'm a New Yorker, so I'm a straight shooter, but I
Right.
know, and how your body feels when you meet people, when you listen to something, when you taste something, when you look at something. Like, go through the five senses and just listen for what you feel, and then do something about it. Do more of it if it feels delicious, and if it doesn't, do less.
Yeah.
Do less.
Oh,
Yeah.
so simple and yet so complex at the same time, right? To pay
Yeah.
attention. But
Pay attention.
so I love that. I love that tip. We have not had that tip on the podcast before.
Awesome.
Yes. Wendy, thank you so much. Such a joy to connect with you here
Me
today. I'm
too.
so excited for people to hop over and get to know you better.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here. It was such a delight to connect with you again. And thank you. Thank you.
Of course. See you again soon.
All righty. Take care.